Hey everybody, Michael here. Thank you so much for taking time to hop on and watch this video. It's about 8 minutes long, so I hope that this 8 minutes is really valuable for you today. I'm joined today by one of my executive coaches, Angus Nelson, and today we're talking about the things that quickly lead an executive leader towards burnout. So I think that you're going to really enjoy this. I've known Angus for close to 20 years, roughly, but we've had a professional relationship as well as him being my mindset coach for close to the last 2 years. So last week you got to hear from my other executive coach, John Michael Morgan, and both these guys are just brilliant guys that I have in my life. So I'm super thankful for them. I'm super thankful for Angus, and I think you're really going to enjoy what he has to bring to this conversation. So thank you so much, Angus, for joining us today. For today's just real quick hot topic, so we're going to take like 3 minutes here. I want to talk to you about leader burnout when it comes to high level teams. And so I'm going to give you a little bit of the framework of kind of where I'm coming from, and then I'd like for you to kind of just drop your gold for a few minutes. Sure. If that's okay. I started off last week, interviewed John Michael Morgan, and just threw out this bigger idea of how I know when a leader's winning, and how I know when a C-level leader, so CEO, executive, when they're winning is when a significant amount of their bandwidth actually shifts towards vision and innovation versus like being in the day-to-day operations of, so working like in your business, not on your business type mentality, right? Yeah. But a lot of leaders have a rough time shifting that because the day-to-day is just so overwhelming. And so what ends up happening is when a leader is stuck working in to where they can't actually get into innovative space, they start reaching out for things that aren't theirs, and they just get burnt out and they get overwhelmed. And more times than not, we actually developed this concept called blueprints and frameworks. I don't know if you remember us talking about that, but more times than not, a significant amount of leader burnout at executive level has everything to do with the people that a leader surrounds himself with versus the things that actually need to get done. So drop something on me a little bit. Tell me a little bit about what you think about when I tell you that.
Well, the first thing I think about is control, right? And leaders, we are not good at giving up control. And so it's kind of like going back to fourth, fifth grade, you're getting on that four-legged chair and you get back on those back two legs and you're just balanced. You're like, yo guys, check me out. Oh my God. And the moment that chair goes out of balance, you flail. And you'll seek to grab and pull anything you can to get back into control. And as leaders, as human beings, we often do that as well. And it can be people, and it can be things, and it can be processes, it can be tasks. And we will grab some of that stuff in a more figurative manner to be able to take control. And that's the trap, is we become our own bottlenecks within our company when we get to that task-ridden mindset. Versus, as you said, the blueprint versus the framework. Like the blueprint is when we're mapping all those different parts and pieces. And typically the best leaders actually function more from a vision standpoint. That's the framework, right? That's where you have to see at 30,000 or 30,000 or 40,000 feet, however your metaphor happens to roll out. And now all of a sudden you have margin and time to actually see a horizon. Because the only task a leader has is vision. That's not for this guy, it's not for that gal, it's not for anyone else on your team. The vision solely relies on the leader. And if you're so busy doing all the blueprints, following all the tasks and getting into the minutiae and becoming the bottleneck, you're too exhausted. You don't have clarity. And you're constantly seeing all the things right below that you can't see the context of if they're even taking you where you want.
Yeah, that's absolutely brilliant. And in being a leader, being an executive within the organization, I think some of the things that kind of can get a little bit overwhelming is that you do have the responsibility of running the day-to-day operations or the overall success of your organization, but it doesn't it doesn't get you off the hook of actually being the main primary chief visionary officer of your organization. But in order for your vision to get traction, it's almost like you have to liken it to being a runner in a relay race, right? So if you're running and you're moving along and you're carrying the baton, at some point in time, you actually have to hand that baton off to somebody. Now, the difference between a leader that's going to burn out versus a leader that's going to go ahead and catapult this thing into the next level of success is, are they handing the baton off to somebody in which they already know the play or they're able to build it on the run? Or are they handing it off to somebody that doesn't necessarily know how to run a relay race? They're going to stop in the middle of the tracks and they're going to ask advice. They're going to come back to you and ask you to give them the play-by-play book, right? So visionary leaders, so if we went in the blueprints and frameworks model, framework leaders, which are visionary leaders, need to hand off to their first layer of extra framework leaders who can then hand off to blueprint players. If a senior leader surrounds himself with blueprint players, they themselves become blueprint players. And so they will end up burning out. Interesting.
Truth. No, it's the truth. And let me just add to that too, is because, in psychology, it's as though we attract what we are and we create what we are.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you as a leader are operating from a place of deficit or lack, if you're in this place of where you're feeling less than, in that moment, in that sequence, whatever is going on, you've got venture capital is saying, hey, what's going on, guys? You've got a board that's calling out, you've got investors of stock options and whatever, like whoever is putting a demand on you, sometimes we forget that that's an invitation to become a more powerful and better leader.
Ooh.
And we'll shrink instead to go to that place of lack. And then we start making really terrible decisions. And that's, again, where we're spinning control, and we will reflect into being blueprint to blueprint. We will attract more blueprint because now we're trying to do things. Versus when you can come from this place of abundance and source and supply. And now I'm in this place that when that challenge comes, when that demand is placed upon me, I rise to that occasion. And I'm attracting the kinds of people who also are willing to rise to occasions. Like, hey, y'all, come on, we got some big things to pull off. And now the framework mindset attracts other framework mindsets. And so there's this really interesting psychological component to all of this, that really the leader dictates how things will flow. So all problems become leadership problems. And the truth is, you don't have business problems, you don't have money problems, you don't have relationship problems, you have personal problems that are showing up in your business, in your relationships, and in your money. And these are the things that we don't take into play. That mindset is everything. And when you're in that place of lack and deficit, you're never going to win.
Dude, that's gold. That is so good. So just to kind of summarize this, and what I just heard you say is actually one of my stickies. It's one of my true norths. It's just simply this, and we'll close out on this, is that whatever you make visible is what you replicate. And leadership always starts with you, right? So, dude, thanks for doing this. Appreciate you. High five. Come on.
My pleasure.